The topic that we're going through is mental health and artistic expression. But I like
Yeah.
food. You know, I feel like food is can solve like half of the mental stress we go through. Can solve can solve half of the mental stress we go through. So food is very
Yeah.
important. Food is very important to this. Um, and an aside, I don't know if you saw this ad that was run by Snickers, right? You are not you when you are hungry, and like it showed people doing like crazy things, going
Mhm.
after this saying a hungry man is an angry man. If you have not seen it,
Yes.
go and check it out. It was a really funny like ad series. So yes, um, you can be a very angry poet if you have not eaten.
Well,
So
luckily, because of the way poetry is, you can just call it passion. You can be passionate poet, but yeah, yeah.
you know, but on the other hand, it's very interesting. I was thinking sometime, and like to grow, you have to be hungry. So which is it? Should you be a foodie or
Yeah.
should you be hungry? But
I
that's
think it's
that's
a
that's
it's a balance of both, really.
okay. So maybe some of you have seen spoken word and you think maybe it doesn't apply to like your this conversation doesn't apply to your particular art form. I'm telling you that's a lie. If you have friends that are, practicing other disciplines of art, get them on here. This is something. Um, and there's a very serious reason for that. Um, Earlier when I started talking a lot about art, I came to like this very interesting realization that uh, artists or this contemporary, this Renaissance, this old artists, they didn't die well. And
Oh
like,
my god.
no, it's true. It's like they were plagued with something or the other, right? It's like they were like outcasts, they were looked down at one kind, they were battling with, demons and I should put that in air quotes, but like they were not who you look at and be like, oh, this is my baseline for what a healthy um, person, whether mentally or otherwise. Right? And
Yeah.
it seems to be very telling. And I do not understand it. It's something I've been thinking about. I feel that um, creatives tend to be more attached to like the work that they do than any other work, any other type of work, right? Like it seems that creatives are very, I don't know, their work weighs more on them than maybe a banker, for instance, or maybe a lawyer, for instance, or other types of work. And I think that maybe this might be one of like the bigger pressures of that affects our mental health is like when your whole life is tied around your work. What does that begin to feel like? What does that cause, right? And I don't know if you have experienced that, and if you have experienced that, just explain how like your work relationship kind of like is your how your I think let me just go out the gate and ask this question, right? Whether my hypothesis is right or wrong. Do you
Mhm.
think, or has your creative work, is it one of, does it weigh down on like mental health? And I think this is a question that balances it. Do you think that maybe your life would be a little better if you were not creative? So, or from the mental health angle.
Okay, so I'm going to start from your last question. I cannot imagine not being an artist. Um, I just can't imagine my life, what it would be. So, going back to the talk and the analogy you gave. So, art, especially poetry, is very cerebral. right? And this is not to put down other, career parts and no, but you see, before poetry in particular became a career, it was um a hobby, and I'm doing air quotes for this. Um, it was a hobby because people found themselves able to express their innermost thoughts in ways that whatever they were doing for money couldn't help them to.
Yeah.
So I'll go by the example you gave. You gave an example of a banker, right? And take for example the cashier. She he or she deals with lots of clients on a daily basis, and knowing, let's be honest, they are really
Yeah.
annoying people, right? And
Very.
then
Yeah.
he or she has to, have this persona all the time. Hello, mom, how you doing, sir? Da, da, da. And then probably you're dealing with an angry client who's shouting over you, and you can't shout back. You're just, all calm and professional and formal. You see, with poetry, we it's poetic license. We get to say what we want to say. That's it.
Yeah.
So anyways, it's not all gloomy and angry and bad. That's not it. But yes, artists generally are pretty attached to their works because of because it is an integral part of them poured out, right?
Yeah.
So it's like this is Misa, and Misa replicates Misa, like another Misa. So
Yeah.
there's Misa A, Misa B. You can't treat Misa B carelessly and Misa A is going to be fine. No,
Yeah.
that is why artists are like very, very, particular about their works. Now, for me, poetry, I do poetry full time. That's my career. Has it affected my mental health in the beginning? Yes, yes, because sadly, um, we and I mean poets have made
Yeah.
our art, allowed darkness shroud the art so much because people are drawn to the mystical, the mysterious and all that. And then
Mm-hmm.
when we express our art, with such sadness, with such darkness, anger, negative emotion, there's something mystical about it that intrigues people. And so, because we want to continually intrigue people, we have allowed the art become that without thinking about or thinking of the fact that it impacts us negatively as well, right? So, in the
Yeah.
beginning, that is how it affected me. Now, how it impacts my mental health is when the kudi owo okubo does not come in. That's where that's where we begin to have a problem. It's like, okay, like, what's going on? It's
So we have gone
payday.
back to the issue of food.
Well, you know, so basically I had to grow of that um out of that place, that stage of my art where um the negativity. And we talk about life a lot in poetry. You talk about life, you talk
Yeah.
about, tools and expressions, and sometimes you talk about really, really ugly experiences. We have
Yeah.
had to myself and those around me. We have actually made a mental effort, a conscious effort, to put compartments in our minds when we write or we express our art, or else we will drown in these things that we seek to express. But we have to tell the stories because it is our duty as poets, to give words, give expression to, what's going on around us. But we have had to, I personally, I have learned to grow out of it where it doesn't draw me down, where it doesn't drown me. Yeah.
So basically, it's like we are as creatives, we are more attached to like that image of creativity, or that image of being creative is more, tied to who we are. We perceive it as being more
Yeah.
tied to who we are than as other things. I really resonate with that. Um, and I also really resonate with you talking about, a lot of us creating from place of like is it darkness per se, right? Of like negative emotions of
Yeah.
majorly because our lives are somewhat like the prototype for our work. right?
Mhm.
Um,
Mm.
and because we have our identities so interwoven into this work that we do, then it is easy that you know every attention or everything that goes on with our art tends in some ways, pardon me, tends in some ways to affect us. So what was the journey like? Getting to that point of attaching or compartmentalizing your art, right, from your person.
Okay, so I did not see the need to initially. I didn't. It's not like I really had any guide when I started writing or I started actively performing. So I'll just write from my heart, write whatever, I see things, I get upset about it, I write about it, I get more upset about it, it's a cycle. And I was doing just fine until October 2022. That was the point where I knew that, something had to change. Every writer that I knew that were around me suffered severe mental breakdown. And I'm speaking to the incident of the Lekki massacre here
Yeah.
in Nigeria. Every poet I knew, every poet I knew at that time suffered very severe mental breakdown. We couldn't just so I mean, some people, saw what happened firsthand. Others, like me, saw what happened online. And I mean, everybody, we were all appalled at the horror of it, you know. Now, of course, you're a writer, it's your responsibility. You need to say, speak the truth, because at the time, I think a day or two after, there were already people denying, oh, it never happened. There were no
Yeah.
shootings, all that, all that. So amplify the truth, amplify the truth. Now, when it comes to spoken word poetry, when you're telling stories like that, you immerse yourself in the story. You become the story. It's like you telling your experience, and so you have to allow your imagination run wild. And there's something I have learned about the brain, what the mind does when you think about things. Um, when you think about things, the mind does not know that you are thinking. The mind actually reacts like you are experiencing it.
Expensive.
So writing about it, I mean, it was like a trap, like a landmine that were just pushed in and explosives everywhere. Funny thing is, most of us who chose to write about it, we could not even publish on the road because we were not okay. And at that point, I said to myself that, if this incident could bring me to my knees like this, what if there are other incidents that I am mandated to work on? Is this how I will crumble every time? Because at that point I was ready to quit being a poet.
Yeah.
Honestly, at that point, I know people did not understand that. When I didn't publish my piece, I got messages. Fragile, write about it. Why are you not writing about it? Why are you not writing? And I just wanted to scream like, "You guys, leave me alone! I am no longer a spoken word poet. Leave me. I'm done." I can't. My brain was shutting down on me. A couple of us had to actually seek therapy. It was that crazy. And of course, people will not understand in this part because were you there? Yeah, did you experience it
Yeah.
firsthand? I experienced
What
it
with the people
firsthand
that
in my
experience it?
mind,
Yeah.
in my mind, in my mind, right? And it was so much horror. I could not sleep. I could not. And then at that point, I realized that yes, there are stories. There are going to be very hard stories that I would have to tell as a spoken word poet, but I have to be strong enough to tell them. And so, as much as I immerse myself in my work, I have to also leave a part of me where it is safe so that after all of this, I can be sane again. So it was from that point I started consciously just touching myself, not really touching myself for my work, but just creating a part of me that was specifically for a particular story, letting that part of me be the sacrificial lamb, experience everything that needs to be experienced so that the piece can be born. So yeah, it was from that point that I learned how to compartmentalize.
Oof. I totally do understand. Um, I feel like one thing many of us don't realize is that uh, our mind gets hijacked very easily by negative emotion.
Yeah.
And it has been my experience that a lot of artists start art, as a way to kind of like offload, right? A way to kind of so we had this session recently, and the guest Coley was like, uh, poetry and music was the thing he did to um, talk about things he could not talk about, to express things he could not express, he could not say out loud. And
Yeah.
it's the same for me, it's the same for many people. We discover creativity out of a dark place, and our mind gets very jacked up on negative emotion. So that's why news channels are very popular. That's why is Insta blogging, right? It's not necessarily it's not the good news. It's the
Mhm.
shocking news. Like, I don't know how to explain it, but it starts bringing from experience. It brings about two things. It brings us to this place where um all we can see is gloom, and that's what we basically write.
Yeah.
And it creates a feedback loop because it is somewhat an easy emotion to get out of other people. So when you write a really sad piece, other people can join you in that sadness more.
Yeah.
I don't know if this English is correct. It more easily is correct than they can follow you through like happy or happier situations, right? And it creates
Yeah.
this feedback loop where people like your work, but your work is rooted in like sadness and dark emotions, and you are writing as a form of more like self-expression, and so that's
Yeah.
digging you into like this pit of you have to now get yourself into this continuous state of um feeling dark emotions, dark thoughts, because that gives you the what's the
The
word?
desired response
Yeah,
or
it
the
gives you
desired.
it gives you this
Yeah.
response that
Yeah.
the hit of dopamine when people are saying good work and that like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think that doesn't seem like a very good model, right? So it doesn't seem like a very good model. Oh, what are your thoughts on that? You know,
Well, these are I've gone through that phase actually.
yeah,
I've gone through that phase where I started actively writing negative pieces because I wanted to elicit a certain kind of reaction from my audience. At a point, I was even known as the heartbreak poet. I'm not proud of that. Yeah, because of the pieces, the kind of pieces that I wrote. But then I got to a point where I became pretty dissatisfied. So people will be like, that line, deep, and that's it. And that's it. On to the next thing. You know, it wasn't that it was really resonating with them. They appreciated my penmanship, great, but like there wasn't any message to hold on to. And I remember someone made a post and the person was like, "Oh, quote a line from your work." Now I was reading through the comments and people had such uplifting lines that I'm like, wow, I will leave this person. People will quote this person. And I was going through my website. Uh, uh, ah, nah, nah. I didn't really have anything to put out, anything that actually spoke to hope, spoke to the future, right? So in 2019, I believe 2019, 2020, yeah, early 2020, I wrote a
yeah,
poem. I met this really amazing lady, who's a sickle cell survivor. and she told me her story. She's in her 50s, approaching 60, if I'm not mistaken. And she told me her story, and my jaw like dropped, and I wrote a poem for sickle cell survivors, right? Like detailing their struggle,
Yeah.
their, and I wrote it in first person. And of course, I had it up. I think I just posted it online last year. I posted it on TikTok last year, and the feedback humbled me. Now, yes, I detailed their struggles and everything, but at the end of the piece, she inspired that. At the end of the piece was hope, was I'm going to fight this thing, I'm going to win, I will come out victorious, I will not hide, I will not live my life feeling crippled. And there was just so much hope at the end of the piece. And I posted it, and I saw people like people with sickle cell come out to drop their comments and leave their comments, and tell me, oh, this is what I deal with every day, but yes, I will fight. It was so uplifting. I'm like, this is what I actually want my piece to do for people. Somebody was like, I just got out of a crisis yesterday, and I'm just seeing this is definitely God speaking to me. That is what I want my work to do for people, right? I don't just want, oh, this is deep. Snap. That's
Yeah.
that's that's pretty shallow. Really, that's pretty shallow. I think every poet will go to a point, or that is my hope, that every poet goes to a point where they realize that um, there is more to their art than social media validation.
Yeah. Um, speaking of validation, right? And it's very interesting how validation works. And how that affects the work that we make. So also referencing the conversation that um, previously had on Canvas, it's that we are seeking that validation. So what happens? What happens to some artists or to some creative people is that you create some certain level of work, right? Maybe you have been, and this is mostly the case. You have been creating for quite a bit, and then something you do goes viral, right?
Yeah,
And then
yeah.
it's probably the thing you didn't even expect to go viral, right? And then people like it, and people are, hailing you and everything. That brought like thousands of fans, so to speak. And
Yeah,
that gets us into this state where we want to feed that beast. We want to feed that we want to top that virality. We want to crack the code.
yeah.
We want to get, like, I'm not going to say that.
Like, you just want to stay in that place
Yeah,
constantly, that high, constant.
yeah, and like, I'm not even saying that feeling is it's not a bad feeling,
It's
because
not.
I'll make this very interesting. I think the last election, right? I wrote a poem,
Yeah.
and I started it with, this poem doesn't need your likes, it doesn't need your applause. And high key, did not get many likes and many applauses. And it was very soul crushing to me. Because at the end of
Wow.
the yes, because at the end of the day, right, we like to be applauded. But
Yeah.
what now begins to happen is that you get that validation, and maybe it was an experiment, maybe it was a poem or a particular type of this thing that you're not the most comfortable. It was just a fun thing to do at that time. And so what that leads many of us to do is that we start chasing that
Yeah.
validation, and that never really ends well. It never really ends well. Um, okay, your this thing went
Yeah.
off the bed. It
Yeah.
never ends well. And when you were talking about it, it was one thing that came to my head, and I was like, we really need it. At least let people know that this is this thing, because um one of like my biggest. So I remember when CK Love Quantity blew up, right?
Yeah.
And it was everywhere. And my first thought was that, how do people deal with amazing, like, the work that goes super viral that kind of like kickstarts your career? Let's say your career started on, you were relatively unknown, right? And then
Yeah.
you do this thing that kickstarts your career. How does that play down, down the line in a world full of one hit wonders? Do you have any thoughts on that? No, it's true because you go online and if you just go after this thing, you could just Google one hit wonders and you will see many articles, many people talking about one hit wonders, and nobody really wants to be a one hit wonder. So, how do
Yeah.
you reconcile that feeling of doing the work that you actually need to do with like struggling with validation and with that fear that you may never top the work that you recently did that put you to the limelight?
Yeah. Okay. This this has Fragile Dogbo's experience written all over it. So when I actually started writing poetry, I didn't know that there were poets in Nigeria, right? I just stumbled across a video on Facebook of Jackie Hill Perry, and I was like,
Mm,
oh, I'll just write for fun. And then whenever I'm chance to leave the country, leave Nigeria, I will go somewhere where they do poetry, where they have poetry, and I would, write and perform this piece. So I was just writing. I'd not met any poets. Eventually, I realized that there were poetry existed in Nigeria, but at the time when I started writing, um, I wrote for myself. I
yeah,
didn't have an audience, but I wrote for myself. And the pieces I wrote when I started, my poetry career. I tell you, they are powerful till tomorrow. They are powerful till tomorrow.
I
Now,
feel
here's
you.
what happened. I finally got into a community. I finally got into a community in 2017, if I'm not mistaken. I started getting invites to perform in like a couple of states. No, it had not got to my head at the time because people, didn't know me. When they would mention my name, nobody would clap. They would only clap when I'm done. So I mean, it had not got into my head. Then I got into competitions. My first competition, I was first runner up, and I'd shaken the place a little bit. So they're like, this is somebody to watch out for. My second competition was what almost had me, and I am still recovering from it. My second competition was, a bigger competition here in Lagos. It was a national slam, which I won. And then it was like, how the limelight is on you. You have to write for this audience. You have to feed this audience. You have to, I got in for the third competition. I won that as well. That happened. Now, I was not the fragile that was writing, hoping to find a group of people just gathered together, to share her work. I became the fragile that wrote for people's applause, right? So that altered me. I would see myself, having sacrificing deep message for punchlines and
Yeah.
wordplays. And now that's one. Um, Last year, a video of mine went viral. Gucci Cross went viral. And when I wrote Gucci Cross, I didn't write it for any particular event, or I was just at home. I just finished my Bible study and then it came. I'm like, okay, wrote it down. I didn't hope to perform it somewhere. And then I had an event and someone was like, do you have any poem to any poem? I'm like, yeah, that one. I did it. When I posted it the first time, just a handful of likes and shares as usual. So I'm like, okay. And then I posted it again on TikTok and it went viral, right? As it went viral, and then in my comment, people were like, "Oh, write a poem for me tomorrow. Write a poem for me next tomorrow." You need to see me. I was a crazy person, with a book and pen. Um, I need to come up with something. I need to come up with something. And then something happened with the whole Gucci cross. There was a little trouble with it, plagiarism, whatever, whatever, And then people were like, well, if it's really her work, let her come up with something as good as Gucci cross. And I
Wow.
began to doubt that I could come up with something as good as it. I mean, when I was in my room writing, these people were not there to tell me, this thing you are writing will go viral.
Yeah.
It was just another piece. And now, so why am I so afraid to pick up my pen to recreate something, to create, not recreate, to create something that edifies my soul? Why am I so terrified? Because I want to be viral again. Now, when I was in that viral space, man, it felt good. I'm not gonna lie. I would wake up, my phone was buzzing, my
King,
mail,
king,
like
king.
my email. Oh my days. It felt good. I felt like a mini celebrity. People like, oh, I'm a fan, I'm
Yeah.
a fan. It felt great. And I was trying so hard to sustain it. At that point, I was eating, living, breathing TikTok. Like I wake up in the morning, I'm not even some people will say you won't even check if you can walk, you picked up your phone. Like that was me. I pick up my phone and the next thing I'm just thinking, oh, somebody has commented, write a poem for me today. Which is not really logical, really.
Yeah.
But you would see me pick up a pen, trying to write something, hoping that it goes viral. So whenever I post my pieces, that period, I don't post them because this is a part of me that I'm sharing with the world. It is, you guys better make this viral again. And when it will not go viral, I would ignore the people who would say, oh, wow, this touched me. Oh, wow, this resonates with me. I would ignore all of that and be fixated on how many people liked, how many people shared. Like,
Yeah.
I would just be so glued on the analytics, that I forget the meaning embedded in the work that I put out. It is like it became a prison. I became so terrified of writing. I am still recovering from that. I'm not even going to deny. I'm still recovering from that. I got so fixated on it that writing became a very scary experience. It wasn't joyful. It wasn't exciting to, put my thoughts, my experiences on
Yeah.
paper anymore. It was more like if I write this thing, will it go viral
Will it go
again?
viral?
What can I do about this poem? How can I alter the poem so it goes viral again? It became a very sick cycle. And please, if guys, don't get caught in it. It's not a beautiful experience at all. It's not a beautiful experience at all. Like,
Totally, totally. I totally get what you're saying, right? It's like, um, and I think this in many ways would resonate very deeply with content creators, people who are putting work
yeah.
out there. And
Mhm.
there is a dependency on social
Yeah.
validation right now, and access to
Yeah.
social validation that we have never had before, right?
Yeah.
This is the last, is it 15 years, have been like this grand experiment as to um you know how social we can get without actually being social. In that
Yeah.
sense that we are seeking so much validation from outside, we forget that that is not the most important thing, especially when it comes in terms of stuff like our mental health, when it comes to our art, and when it comes to like how we value ourselves, because we begin to now value ourselves based on the way we perceive that the online space, or fans who may or may not know us personally value us, right? And
Yeah.
that our relevance is in some ways tied to that. And it's a very slippery slope.
True.
It has caused a lot of burnout. Um,
Mhm.
I don't know how many. I'm taking a break. Uh, there was a time on Instagram. There was a lot of I'm taking a break. I'm taking a
Oh
break
my
on
days.
YouTube. I'm taking a break. I'm taking a break.
I've
So
disappeared
much
for
that
2 months.
I totally understand. There was a particular point. There are these guys I watch, um, Colin and Samir, and I think they are very good people. Like if you want to understand the creative space and like the
Yeah.
working and the industry, very amazing people to check out. And they were talking about how at some point creators might have to start putting breaks as part of like their content plan, right?
Yeah.
That if you want to be able to contain and sustain creating quality content or making quality art, you have to now put in a break time, because you can't be running on all cylinders at all times. First of all, it's the idea of creativity, right? There is a finite level of super creative ideas we can make, right? So to speak. It's like
Mm-hmm.
you can't have ideas that will change the world every single day, right? You
True.
might have
True.
5 ideas or 5 pieces of content that truly change the landscape, of 5 ideas that truly change things, but
Mm-hmm.
you can't build your whole life and your whole worth on like those five things that were
Yeah.
out of your control. And I think maybe there is some level of control to it, right? Is that
Yeah.
we feel that to some extent that we can at will create something that would be super resonative, right? Something
Yeah.
that will get us, the clicks, the likes, something that would always be revolutionary. And we fail
Yeah.
to appreciate, um the mundane work of actually creating and creating
True.
something that may be personal to us. Something that maybe gets towards maybe just talking to one or two people.
Yeah.
And that brings me to two things. One is that I started self-identifying as geniuses, right? Especially when you have
Oh.
great work, that you self-identify as a genius, and what that does is that you are in this constant battle with self to top yourself, right? And conversely, the reason you're topping yourself is because like there's some sort of invisible competition that you cannot be every other artist. You have to be
Yeah.
this always high level, high functioning, changing the world at every second type artist. And
Yeah.
there is that self identification. And then there is like the second part to it that um, we do not know how to differentiate what work is what work, right? I
Mm-hmm.
feel like maybe some of our conflict also comes from um, not knowing how to compartmentalize our work. Like, okay, this work is for me. This
Yeah.
work is work I need to do. So there is like the idea of as a creative, you need to keep on creating, whether it is fantastic or not. Like you need to
Or
show up.
not.
So like saying that yes, this work is for me to show up, right? This work is for me to um express myself. And not every expression needs to be shown, right? Like there are some things,
Yeah.
it's not, it's like there is work for the sake of work. It's like the more I work, the better I become. So I need to work whether I am inspired or not. And there is
Yeah.
work that comes that I need to kind of like offload. So we don't have any distinction between all these things. And
Yeah.
that kind of like weighs down on us. And going back to like separating work, and we talked about that briefly in the beginning. It's like a lot of us start writing or start creating as a way to express, as a way to put down
Yeah.
our, but we never really learn, and because of the nature of um our minds wired to bad news and all these type of things, putting down this this stuff, we never learn to refine our work, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Um, I remember something somebody said. I think it was Titi Lopeshonuga that said it, and paraphrasing, is that you can write about bad experiences and make them beautiful, right? And not
Yeah.
just in the way that this thing touched me, I felt it, right? But you're bringing out a more complex work than just the trauma, right? Like you can bring out hope, you can extract hope from the trauma, you can make work that is more complex, right? Than just the trauma. And it leads me to, I know I'm talking a little too much, but like I'm trying to expand
It's
something
okay.
here. It leads me
Yeah.
to this idea of you can't create what you don't have, right? And so maybe everything I'm saying and this feedback loop, from maybe getting viral from doing something that was from a negative emotion, right? Or seeking that and not the validation that we're getting makes
Yeah.
us get to this point where we are still immature, right? And we are
Yeah.
not, even though we are writing as a form of expression, as a form of, putting down what is in our hearts, we never really write as a form of like therapy and exploring that and getting to that place of healing. So
Yeah.
our art never really transformative. And maybe that is a problem. And I would like to know if your 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 path to healing has been a similar trajectory of I need to get my art from people pleasing and just writing down everything that's in my head to something more transformative, and if that has benefited your work in any form.
I have confessional poems, but at the time of writing them, I did not realize that they were confessionals. I used to have a joke. I used to make a joke with my friends that, oh, I am Madame Bashira when it comes to my art. I put too much of myself, too much of my experience. I put it out there. But at the time, I did not realize why I was doing that. Because if it was just about people pleasing, I know the kind of poems that people wanted to listen to. I think at a point, somebody even pointed it out one time. A friend of mine was like, "Do you know that your work, you use a lot of sexual innuendos in them?" And I realized I started doing that because of the kind of audience that I had, that I was exposed to at the time. So I was always writing for them. And even though it was a straightforward piece, I was sprinkling some, which was really not necessary, but I did not know that at the time. Now, I'm part of the sharing. I write my confessionals and then, oh wow, this is intense. Put it up. You know, I did not realize that there are points that you write for your eyes only. I didn't know that was the thing. Nobody told me that. As far as I was concerned, if it is dope, it should be shared. No, not necessary. Not necessary. Now, the way I see art, the way I see poetry, especially people who write from experiences, they're pretty interconnected. Your works, you'll find that your works are pretty interconnected. So that you do not share that particular work does not mean that there isn't a version you are yet to write that you can share. And so in my journey of healing, writing all of those confessionals, sometimes I go back and I remember like going over one of them with a friend of mine, and I was so familiar with the things I said in the piece, and while I was listening to something I've been battling with since childhood, not relating to poetry now. The personal experience of mine, where I'll be a little more specific, where I was in my version of events, I was victim, right? I was victim, and so every time I would write or retell or tell this story, this is what was done to me. This is what was done to me. In that moment, watching with my friend, I realized, true, it was what was done to me. I have narrated what was done to me. So what next? Moving on. You can't stay caught up in that past, right? Yes, this is what happened to you. So how do you move on? How do you deal with it in the future? Confessionals help you do that, right? As far as I was concerned, I mean, when I put it, that was what confessionals did for me. It made me, look inward and ask myself certain questions. When I put it up, I remember when I put it up, I did have likes, people like, oh wow, this is sad. Remember what I said earlier on about, writing for people's validation. Oh wow,
Yeah.
this is deep. This is some people put fire emoji. I mean, felt good to see myself being validated, but it didn't do anything for in here, right?
Yeah.
But going over it on my own, I realized the purpose for it. And there has to be purpose to art. I think that there's been this argument that not every artwork should have a purpose. I do not agree with that at all. So why are you writing? There has to be a why. There has to
Yeah.
be a purpose to it, right? If you understand
Yeah.
the purpose for your particular work, I talk about art, of course, is an art space. But I'll streamline into poetry because that is, my line. If there isn't a purpose to your writing, so you're just writing to what? Throw it into the atmosphere, then what
Yeah.
happens
Yeah.
to it? So when you understand the purpose for a particular work of art, you know what to do with it, you know where to place it and where not to place it. So that I think that's it really. That's it really. Just know what your why is.
That's fantastic. So what are kind of like the things? What are the things that have held you together um during this very wide swing? So let's say, for instance, you have talked about uh, have people's approval, right? You have talked about um, always the pressure of wanting to top yourself up, and all these other mental pressures. That come,
Yeah.
talking about experiencing emotions that you have had to go for therapy. So, what are like your if you were to have like a guide, using yourself as like a test subject, what are the things that you think are essential for creatives to, be in the right headspace for them to keep on, creating?
First of all, um know that your art is not essentially in isolation. It comes from you, right? So it is an expression of you. I mean, it comes from your mind, and we all know the scripture as a man thinketh, so is he. So is your art. Really, your art is an expression of you, right? That's one. Two, I just talked about purpose. Purpose is very, very important. When I started writing, I heard, not just in writing, like generally speaking, growing up, I heard people talk about purpose, and I thought that it was overflowed there. But what is your purpose? Find your purpose. Define your purpose. And it was like, yeah, too much noise. It's not noise. It is not noise. It is very, very important. Or else you would just go with the flow. There's a line from a rapper friend of mine. It says, I can't remember how it says it, but you get carried away if you go with the flow. There's
Yeah.
some current wordplay in there,
Yeah.
really brilliant stuff, you know. So if you do not know why you're doing what you're doing, you will just go with the crowd. Now, part of the people in that crowd know why they are doing what they are doing,
Yeah.
whether it makes sense or not. But there's a purpose to it. So when they, take another direction that you do not expect, you just left there. Like, what do I do with myself? Another thing you're going to see with a lot of creatives is um a loss of a sense of identity. So they do not know who they are and why they are, where they are. Yeah, that loss of identity is something that I personally have experienced. And still, I think it's all still tied to purpose. That a lot of creative experience, it's still tied to purpose. Now, this is something I learned recently because for a very long time I kept on hearing, oh, you need to define your purpose, find your purpose, and I wasn't finding the thing, you know. And I can't remember the name of the preacher, but it was a very life-changing sermon. In fact, that was the one line that I got from that sermon. He said, um no, okay, not quoting him now because I can't remember exactly how he said it, but this was the idea behind it. In your quest to finding your purpose, right? Keep busy, do what you ought to do morally, right? Don't just go crazy. Just keep on doing something morally. Be as artistic as possible. Commit to what you do, and you will find purpose in it. You are not going to find purpose just sitting down waiting for purpose to just fall from heaven, onto your lap, right? In your purpose is your
Yeah.
sense of identity. So you know your how, your why, your where, your when your purpose is defined. But pending when you really know, okay, this is what I am meant to be doing something. Don't just sit idle, right? Don't get swept for your mental health. Don't just get swept, into that viral rave. All right. It's
Yeah.
awesome. If your work goes viral, great for you. I mean, it showcases your brilliance, but don't make that your identity.
Don't try that.
You
See
know,
that
I, I,
identity. Yeah.
I started seeing people putting stuff on their Instagram bio went viral. I don't know if you've seen that. And I'm like, excuse me, that's a thing. Wow, it's a thing. Please don't make that your identity. Do
Yeah.
not, I mean, it's a very intoxicating space to be in. When you have all of the attention, don't stop creating because you are in that space. Don't abandon all your other works and just focus on this one that went viral because this is the golden child. Don't do
Yeah.
that, you know, or else. Because see, the attention span of a lot of humans are very, very fickle. They
Yeah.
move on to the next viral sensation just
Yeah.
like that. And so if you do not have anything to fall back on, like you would just find yourself endlessly chasing after that
Yeah.
sensation, after that,
It never ends.
being the wave of the moment, and you will
Yeah.
never find it. You might go viral again, but this is what is going to happen, because human beings are funny people. You go viral again, they will begin to compare your first viral work with your current viral
Videos.
work. And
Yeah.
then when they do that, you now find yourself trying to create a third viral work. Nah,
Yeah.
don't do that
And there is
to
no
yourself.
satisfaction from that.
There is no
No, there.
satisfaction. Another thing I am going to say is believe in something. Believe in something. Look, as a human, right? As a human being, you are not wired to not believe in anything. you have to believe in something that would also, it would be expressed in your work. It's going to be like let's call it a fingerprint. It's going to be like a fingerprint for you, right? So that if there are anomalies in your person for whatever reason, because the world is a funny place,
Yeah.
the world is a funny place. Personally, thankfully, I have not had to deal with impersonation, but I have friends who have had to deal with impersonation, people impersonating them. And then because they stand for something, other people are like, nah, this is not this
Nah, this
person.
cannot
I
be
know
this
what this
person.
person
Yeah.
is. This cannot be this person. So you need to stand for something and be known for a thing, right? For your mental health as well, diversify. Don't just stay stuck where you are. The world is changing at a fast pace. I was having a conversation at a relations place, and an elderly relation, my mother's auntie, and my mom and this auntie were joking, and my mom was, complaining to her that when she tells me to help her with, tech stuff like her phone, I
Mm.
first tease her and tell her, oh, bushwoman, it's a joke, yeah, that I do my
Yeah.
mom. I'm like, bushwoman, you've called me again. And they said something, they're like, oh, don't worry, when you have kids, that's how your kids will say, bushwoman. And we all laughed about it. The world is changing. That's the point of it. The world is changing. Evolve
Yeah.
with it. All right. This is the one time that you're supposed to believe in evolution. Evolve in it. Mentally evolve,
Yeah,
go with
because
the times,
it
right?
doesn't feel good to be left behind. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, and then you begin to clutch a struggle, and then you become this grumpy old creative, old poet,
Local
old
champion
writer.
of the
In
old
my
days.
time, back in those
You
days, nobody wants to hear. Nobody wants to hear your history, really. Nobody does. So yeah, I think those are like from personal experiences are like my top tips. Yeah.
you said something. You said when you were talking about purpose, you said know your when, know your where, and when you said know your when, it just reminded me of something my partner wrote down. I don't think she ever published it, but it was to the topic of all my heroes are older than me, right? And it was talking about comparison and how comparison is like the thief
Yeah.
of joy. And a lot of people that we compare ourselves to, we do not know their story. We do not know how long they have been working on what they have been doing, right? All you get to see
Yeah.
is the peak, right? And people are like icebergs. People's careers are like icebergs. You don't know. There are very few people who their first work propels them, right? And even that doesn't, it's not a metric. It doesn't, it's not like the most sustainable way to build, a career. And it definitely is not the most sustainable way for your mental health. It's like, imagine the first poem you wrote, right?
Yeah.
And it blew up and people started calling
Mm-hmm.
you everywhere and everything. And it's like you haven't built systems to manage your creative output, right? You have not gone through like
Yeah.
periods of like, droughts, right? You have not gone through like seasons per se.
Yeah.
So when all this attention sweeps you immediately, you don't know how to act. And it just reminded me of that. Of also your when is important. Do not go comparing yourself to um people that you don't know the work that they have put into it, right?
Don't
And
compare yourself to anyone at
anybody,
all.
yeah,
At at all. The only person you should make comparisons to is yourself, where you are, where you were, and where you are now. When you were talking, I just remembered this book. I think um uh, almost everybody's parents I knew had that book, Rich Dad Poor Dad. Do you remember the
yeah,
book?
yes, I
You
read
know
it.
that
Yeah,
that was
yeah,
the book.
the book.
Yeah, you
Yeah,
do. I don't know if you remember that. I think years later, I don't think it's been up to a decade ago that the author filed for bankruptcy.
yeah,
Now, this is not to gloat at someone's misfortune. I
yeah,
brought that up to say this. I brought that up to say this, that nobody's story is linear. So even
yes,
if, you know the first the very first piece you drop, the very first act you create. Yes, you're in the limelight. Nobody's story is linear, right? Nobody
Briefing
has
of
it
that.
easy.
Yeah.
Not even the Nepo babies. Nobody has it easy. Because see, life can be very unpredictable.
Yeah.
So when you compare yourself to others, and in saying this, I'm also saying this to myself as well, because I have found myself repeatedly and even in recent years comparing myself to other people, and it has taken away my joy. Because I'm like, I worked really hard. This person just came out from nowhere, and the person is
No,
already,
and we don't know
ah,
the thing is we don't even know the story. There are a lot of limitations we have as people that we do not put into consideration when we are thinking
yeah,
certain things, right? So you're not seeing the work the person put in. You're not seeing the other intangibles. A lot of times we are focusing on metrics that we can't even. You can't necessarily
mm-hmm,
control virality. You can't necessarily control
yeah,
how growth is. Like you said, growth is not linear, right? Um, you can't control. There are certain seasons where things happen, right? So, for instance, there's
yeah,
somebody on our team, right, in the Shizaya crew, who loves mango, and this is season, right? And like there are seasons
yeah,
where mango will grow, right? And because mango is doing very well in this, doesn't mean that pineapple or granite would also fare the same way, right? And you should not be comparing yourself on other people's timelines. It's
yeah,
one of those things that seem very easy, but like the practice is now the other thing. It's like we get to this moment where it's like I've been clapping for other people, right? When will people clap for me, right?
yeah.
It's I
Clap
have
for
been
me,
doing this. Yeah,
yeah.
I've been doing this for about the same period of time that these people have done their work, right? When will it be my turn?
My
And
turn. Yeah.
yeah, and I feel like maybe another point is expectation, right? It
Mhm.
is that at the end of the day, many of us are not creating strictly for the joy of, right? It is
Yeah.
that we are not creating for the edification of people. It has now
Yeah.
become more of we are creating to blow, we are creating to be relevant. And that definitely puts
Yeah.
tension, right? Because
Mhm.
there's this story of oh god, there's this very amazing man of God. Ah,
Yeah.
I would just give like I think he was a plumber, he was uneducated, and he hated God in the beginning. But his wife was the one who used to go to church, and he treated her really badly. But like the way she acted was now what changed him, and he became like this very powerful force, um,
Yeah.
in the kingdom. And many people don't know the wife, right? It's like you
Mhm.
want to measure, success, you want to measure reach, you want to measure um, impact, so to speak. Yes, impact is the word I'm looking
Yeah.
for. It's like I would
Yeah.
be happy. You tied your existence or your happiness to a certain metric of impact. How many fans I
Mhm.
reach, how many people stream my music, or how many people listen to it, or how many content I'm able to sell. But you don't know if your work, right, touches one person and motivates
Yeah.
that one person to sell out stadiums and change hearts and
Yeah.
impact millions of people. But it's like,
Mhm.
oh, I haven't made any progress, I haven't made any impact. And so
Yeah.
we tie this
Yeah.
in. It's like where we also place our values. It's also very important as a way to kind of like guard against, to guard and protect our mental health, guard against, being dissatisfied. Because
Yeah.
we can't even see the finiteness of like the human experience doesn't enable us to see the full reach of the things that we do. So I think
Yeah.
maybe we need to get to this space where It's like, see, everybody, I might not make money from it. And, it is great if you make money from it. And we are definitely having like a discussion later on like monetizing your art and stuff like that. But you might not
Yeah.
be the top dog, right? And maybe we should not be fighting to be the top dog. Maybe we should be
Yeah.
fighting to be um somewhere for somebody, right? At the point that they were low, that our work was able to get them out of, some certain bad situation, or our work was able
Yeah.
to inspire them. Because I'm going back to like something that we have said, living in like this 21st century social media technology hyped brain is that we fail to realize that people don't really mean much again, right?
Yeah.
So here's what I mean.
Mm-hmm.
If you were in a room, there are some of us who cannot do public speaking in a room of 10 people, right?
Yeah.
But
Mm-hmm.
if 20 people like our post, we are angry because it has not reached enough people. I don't know if you
Yeah.
get what I'm saying.
Yeah.
It's like
Yeah.
human presence doesn't mean so much because we are living in a very hyper connected world and all the
Mm-hmm.
problems that come with that, right? So you're here, you're like, man, only 20 people liked my post. Oh yeah, if you do that, if you were having like an exhibition and 20 people were there and they were supposed to speak, can you speak? Right? If 20 people were in an event that you did, would you be able to stand up in front of them? You get what I'm trying to say? Like
Yeah.
in the grand scheme of things, there's a saying that I have, and I tell people that are very close. If you have been able to create something that one person has been able to hold on to, that is a hundred
Yeah.
percent return of investment. Like another
Mm-hmm.
person holding on to your work is like 100% return on investment. So even if one person likes, and like it is not the most optimal, I'm not going to lie. It doesn't feel good if you're writing every day, or if you are taking pictures, or if you are singing every day, and you just have one
Yeah.
fan, right? It doesn't feel good. But many of us fail to see that that is 100% return on investment. That is
Yeah.
another full person who doesn't need to be there, right? It's there.
Yeah.
And maybe we need to shift our minds into like more of like a gratitude stance, right? Maybe we should be
Yeah.
grateful for like the things that are happening. Maybe we should be grateful for the time we are in where we have the opportunity to reach more people than we would originally have been able to if everything was analog, right?
Yeah.
That we are able to, build brands, that we are able to leverage technology in a way that we can create things that are beautiful and can
Mm-hmm.
impact lives, right? In a way that we would not have been able to do so if we're living in another
Yeah.
period in time. Maybe we should
Mm-hmm.
be happy that we found the ability to write, that we are blessed with the ability of to do the art, right? That you are able to
Mm-hmm.
do. And maybe that moves us to a different space. Maybe we start
Yeah.
to create from a place of fullness instead of a place of having to prove yourself. And I'm just imagining how much better we'll be as creatives, as Christian creatives, as people who have a message and who are sharing things to eventually, pass a message or to change stuff. If you are writing, if you are creating from a place of fullness as opposed to as a place of, our art or the things that come as a result of our art feeling us.
Yeah.
Well, I think maybe that's a very amazing shift that we have to go through.
Yeah. Sure.
So, um, yeah, I think I have two questions I will ask. I think I really need to increase the questions. They're quick fire questions. But before that, uh, I would ask this question. I'm coming. I have like some things that I've written. Um, okay, I would just say something that on our conversation, and especially when it comes to there's this the craze verse. where he goes on and says, if you live for their approval, you will die from their rejection. And it is
Mm-hmm.
very telling. He was also talking from a place where he had built an audience, right? He had built a particular demography of audience, and he
Yeah.
was in a particular place in his life where his art was shifting, right? And he was coming under a lot of fire from that audience. And
Yeah.
sometimes your audience becomes your identity as your art becomes your identity, and it's like that's
Yeah.
very harrowing times. And he wrote, if you live for their approval, you will die for their rejection. I guess, I not I guess I know that at the end of the day, um the the approval the approval we should seek is God's approval. That we are doing what we have been put here to do, and God is pleased with
Yeah.
our work, and that we are sure that
Yeah.
at the end of time, is that we are hearing our well done. Like that's where our minds should be. Then every other thing is secondary. Um,
Yeah.
and I think that solves a lot of problems for us. But here comes the thing. Here comes to the bolts and nuts, and the nuts and bolts
Okay.
of everything, right?
Okay.
Um,
Yeah.
Knowing this conversation that we have had, right? Which one do
Mm-hmm.
you prefer? You know, quick blow or slow blow?
Ooh. Ah. Ah. That's oh my days, Mister. Man, this is a pro of my days. Do you know my dilemma? My dilemma is that
Yeah.
any answer I give will actually be a lie to my person. That's the problem. So
Okay, so
can I
so
say both?
give us the yeah,
Can I say both? Okay, so prior to this time, I'll say quick blue because come on now. But
yeah,
then I have been in a space where, like we talked about earlier, I'm like, God, when in fact there was a time I was so frustrated. I did a short form reel on Instagram. It's called God when I was lamenting, God when will I
yeah,
blow? Right. And then what I have learned in this short time, you know, is that it's not as if I cannot blow today to this day. It's that me personally, I have a lot to learn to handle things,
yeah,
right? Just yesterday, I was, praying and then God said something to me. He said, the reason why a lot of things do not make sense to you right now is because um, I give you pieces. Okay, he first started by saying your life, your journey, I like it's like pieces of puzzles in my hands. The reason why a lot of things do not make sense to you right now is that I just give you a few pieces so that you don't get overwhelmed. And even with these few pieces that I've given you, you do get overwhelmed. So imagine I give you everything. So
everything.
just trust. And he gave me those scriptures, the scriptures that talked about the plans that he has for us, eyes is not seen, ears is not heard, and all of that. And then it made a lot of sense. I grumbled a little bit, but it made a lot of sense. That so I have to wait. Nobody likes to wait, So
True that,
I
true that.
understand essentially. I understand essentially why slow blow is necessary because there has to be, let me just say this experience. So somebody that I was opportune to be around at a certain period just went viral. She was at my place and she would actually cry. Like she went viral positively, mind you.
Yeah,
She would actually cry. Like Rachel, oh my god, people are in my DMs. Oh my god, my follower count is like she was panicking. She wasn't pretending, she was
yeah.
panicking. Seriously. She was like, oh, somebody had just called me. Somebody just texted me. Please, Rachel, tell them to stop sharing my number. I'm like, people will get your number. You've gone viral. I can be that person. I can be like that, right? I can be like that. And I have, like I said, I've gone viral. I've gone viral before, and I saw the pressure that I put upon myself because I did not know how to handle things. I did not know how to say, you know what, sit back, breathe. I didn't learn that. I know that I am on a journey. And because I now recognize that I'm on a journey, I know that my blow is coming. right?
Mm.
So I know that I am on a journey. I know I am on a journey. And then by the time I blow the blow, let me even put it out there. In case, I don't go because, when things happen, people expect you to react in a certain way. In case I do not react in the way that you expect, right? Just to understand that it's not pride, it's maturity. In case you don't see me like
Mm.
scrambling all around, always going on live,
Yeah.
to speak to my fans, it's not pride, it is maturity. Because at this point, that's what I'm going to do. If I blow now, oh my God, every 2 minutes, oh, let's go live. I need to connect to my fans so that I don't lose touch. That's so I don't forget I'm
Yeah.
here. That's why I said so both ends. I do not like to wait. Nobody likes to wait. Right? If they say right now, fragile, just press this button and boom,
They
you
may
are
be
made for
blue.
life.
Mm.
Even with this revelation that I got yesterday, I will press the button. I'm not gonna lie to you. I'm gonna press that button, but at the same time, I am learning. I am on a journey that is going to be beneficial for me. And it's very important, this learning process, because when it finally comes, when what we desire finally comes, you need to be able to sustain it. It's not going to be short term. So you need to have the right mental space to handle it. Have you seen something happen for somebody so good, so overwhelmingly good that they shut the world out because they're like, wait, hold up, I don't know what to do. I don't know how to deal with this, right?
Yeah.
That is what is going to happen. You are not mentally prepared for your success.
Yeah.
With these 2 points of mine.
I hope I'll be able to confuse and convince you.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
Okay, so last quick fire question is: would you prefer
Okay.
to be an underrated artist or greatest of all times?
That's easy now. Greatest of all time. So great. Well,
Some
like
people actually prefer
what
to
is
be
my
underrated.
no, no. Do you know the problem with being underrated? The problem with being underrated is that there are people who will be diehard fans of you who would,
Yeah.
attest to your skill, to your craftsmanship, and there are people that even with all of the evidence will say, "Nah, you know good. It ain't good if you don't play outside there."
Mhm.
I don't. How poets
You know,
are with their art. How they come to
pride.
tell me that some of your pieces are neat. Oh, so yeah.
Oh, God forbid. Yeah. Yeah. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Praja. This has been like an amazing conversation. If you have questions, drop them down in the comments. We will get to you. We would answer your comments down the line. This was like a very interesting conversation, and like many people don't know that there is a lot of mental pressure attached to being creative. Like life is already stressful on its
Yeah,
own. Then there is the
yeah,
extra
yeah.
baggage of embodying and wanting to embody creativity. And
Hmm.
so this is a very important topic. I'm pretty sure that some of the things that we have touched on would go you might have even experienced it, right? But we know that all through the journey is something that
Yeah,
kind of like fight for and incorporate into your life to make your
yeah.
experience a fantastic one. If you have a last word for the audience, it will be fantastic. Just a last 2 seconds, thing.
Uh, 2 seconds. With God, all things are possible. Do with it as you please. Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank
Thank you so much. Um,
you
you
for
know,
having me.
since thank you. You deserve like 20 applauses. It has been a fantastic conversation. Um, Before I know I've said this I've said it one time too many, but I did not want to forget this. Where can our audience check you out? What are things you want them to check you out for? Just dump us with like all the details and everything you want us to be part of.
Okay, my personal pages on social media, you can find me at fragile Dogubo. That's FRAGILEGOGUBO. DOG, not K, not K. DOGUBO. So Fragile Double together. You can find me on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, TikTok, YouTube, Fragile Double Boy. For the Lighted Academy, like I said earlier, is my poetry academy where I teach poetry, I share very helpful tips. I have an amazing team. So it is at on Instagram, it is at the Lighted Academy. That's TheLighted Academy. All right, the Lighted Academy. On Twitter, it is just at Lighted Academy. So no Z, at Lighted Academy. For the Lighted Academy, we have, I mean, if you're a writer, you should plug into the Lighted Academy. We have a whole lot for you guys this year. Currently, we have Write-a-thon, which is on. Write-a-thon is a monthly writing challenge for spoken word power, strictly for spoken word power. So, where you get to um, make your 1 minute very creative video, your poem according to the given theme for the month, and then there are incentives for you to win. Um, we have our workshops kicking off in February. I am so excited about that. So every month, excluding the month of January, we have workshops and we have poets from across Nigeria ready to deliver some very heavy things for you. So we are covering poetry writing, we are covering performance psychology, we are covering the business, how to make poetry into a business. We're covering all of that this year. So there'll be workshops every month. You should plug in to that. We're starting this Saturday, we're starting what is called the Village Square, which is just a conversation on Twitter space. Where we talk about like different things. We have guests, and then you get to interact with these guests one-on-one and so many more. Let me not turn this platform into an ad for the Lighted Academy. So if you want to know more, you should check out the Lighted
Yeah.
Academy.
If you're a poet, you should definitely check out the Lighted Academy. You will laugh, you
Yeah.
will cry, you will write. Trust me, I follow. I see all the things. I follow. I engage. It is amazing.
Yeah.
So thank you very much for your time.
Thank you
You
so
guys
much,
follow
Mr.
Fragile, follow the Lighted Academy, and I'm sure that as a creative, as a spoken word artist, you will do amazing stuff. Trust me. Okay, that's
Yeah.
all we have for today. Join us tomorrow for another amazing conversation that would blow your mind, that would change your world, and that's where God. Thank you very much. Have an awesome day, night, or depending on when you are watching this. Bye.